Okay, so today we're going to be discussing how to do the mouth, how to render the mouth. And this is the one I'm going to kind of be referring to, so don't really pay attention to this one up there. That's actually an example on how not to do the mouth. Okay, so when rendering the mouth, there's one main thing to remember, and that is that the bottom lip is a little bit lighter and the top lip is a little bit darker. You need to shade the lips, okay? The lips are not gonna be like this white skin tone right here. You need to shade the lips, and we'll do that with the old blending stick. We'll put a little texture on it in the end. But I wanna show you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about here. So getting back to this portrait, if you look at this guy right here, bottom lip is lighter, top lip is a little bit darker. If you look really closely in here, it's a little bit darker here, and it just kind of like fades to a little bit lighter as it goes down. And it's a little bit darker there, and it fades to a little bit lighter as it goes up there. Top lip darker, bottom lip lighter. Okay, another one. Okay, this is the one I'm doing for my example here. Bottom lip lighter, top lip darker. Most of your examples is probably gonna be like the lips are closed. I'm gonna do an example with the lips open, doing a smile, so that you guys can see what teeth look like as well in case you have to do teeth, because teeth are a little more tricky. Okay, and finally I got my Barry Allen right here. You can see the bottom lip is definitely a little bit lighter, and then you got a lot of shadow on the top. This is just because like the light source, wherever the light's coming from, it's always gonna hit a little bit more of your bottom lip than your top lip. Okay, so let's get to it here. I'm gonna kind of work off of this one right here, and we're going to just swap that out, and we're gonna sketch it out here. So I'm gonna start out by sketching out the lips here, putting a slight V at the top there. You don't want to do one of these sharp, dark V's like that, and you don't want to make dark outlines. Okay, so I'm going to keep it light, and I'm going to try and make it as even as possible here. So I'm going to do this. Top lip is usually a little bit thinner than the bottom lip. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time that's how it goes. Okay, I'm going to leave a little bit of space for teeth in here, and I'm going to make a slightly thicker bottom lip here. Sketching it in, keeping all the lines really light. If I haven't mentioned that before, I know I have mentioned that before, but you need to always keep your outlines real light. Not only is it going to be easier to erase and adjust things, but it's also going to just make for a better portrait in the end. Okay, so I have that. I'm just going to start out and put like a real light shade on there. So I already have a little bit of pencil on my blending stick, so I'm going to use that, and we're going to see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to use that, and I'm going to put a little bit of darkness on the top here, and eventually I'm going to run out. So I'm just going to kind of twist my blending stick to another side where it might have a little bit more pencil on it, and it kind of keeps going. Create a nice soft shadow here, or soft blend, soft shade. Again, I'm going to twist it again, see if I can pick up a little bit more shading. If my blending stick runs out of pencil, I might have to kind of come back and put a little bit of pencil in there to help it get going again. You have to shade smooth. If you shade real choppy and use the blending stick, it's gonna just not work out real well. You can see that area that I made is just gonna be a little bit slightly darker. I might need to tone that down with the eraser a little bit, but I'm just kind of trying to fade it in there and make it all that same consistent value, and I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so now I know that the top is going to be a little bit darker, so I have to press a little bit lighter as I go to the bottom lip here, and I'm just trying to even this out a little bit. And again, you're going to want to just look at your picture. It's going to kind of tell you what to do. You know, I might go back and put like a little bit more darkness up here. Okay, and then try and fade that up. I think that's going to make it look nicer. I'll put a little bit more darkness. Makes it look like the lip is kind of curling in, which it does. It's rounded, so it's going to look like it's kind of a little more shadowed down there, and it's going to fade up here. You guys don't have to do all this stuff. This is just like a little bit extra, if you will. But if you want to try it, go for it. If you want to just, do the basics, which is what I want you to do, I want you to just make the top lip darker, bottom lip lighter. That's what I'm looking for when I'm grading you. So I think I like the way that looks. So now I'm going to go to the bottom lip, and I'm just going to kind of try and make it one tone or one value scale lighter. So I'm pressing not quite as hard as before, but you can see I'm using like the side of the blending stick, not the tip of the blending stick. Okay, it's going to create for a smoother shade. And it's a little bit lighter. Okay, I think that's pretty decent. And again, I might just do that effect where I make it a little bit darker right here, so it shows where lips kind of be curling inward, making it a little bit darker there, and trying to fade that down with my blending stick. You can see I'm making like short, quick motions with the blending stick, and I'm pressing pretty hard on it, you know, to just try and make sure that is blended in. It doesn't seem like it's just like an outline. Okay, so looking pretty good so far. The teeth are looking nice and white here. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to outline the gums. Okay, so I'm going to make an outline across the top here, and I'm going to outline that gum line. And that gum line is just going to get a little bit of blending stick around there. Okay, and then I'm going to outline the bottoms of the teeth. You never want to make dark outlines in between the teeth because it's going to make them look just ridiculous and not realistic. Instead, we're going to just use the blending stick to add like a little bit of a soft shadow in between the teeth, and it's just a little artist's trick that makes it look a little more interesting, a little more realistic. So I'm starting the center here, and I'm going to do the front teeth. Teeth get a little bit smaller as they get to the outside here, and you might see a little bit less of them. I'm going to make another tooth here, and again they get smaller as they go to the outside here. So if I was looking off of a reference, this would probably turn out a little bit nicer, but I'm just kind of doing this out of my off the top of my head here. So I'm making the bottoms of the teeth here too. My teeth, there we go. So we got the tops and the bottoms. Again, they're not too dark, but I'm liking the way it's looking. And then I'm coming back with my blending stick, and I'm just gonna hit like a little bit of blending stick in between those, and it's starting to look a little bit more realistic. Okay, so we have that, and then I'm just gonna go back and I'm gonna make a little bit of blending in those gum lines. Okay, I'm just kind of losing a little bit of definition between the gum line and the top lip here, but I'm just going to go back and put a little bit, not a dark outline, but a little bit of an outline across there, and kind of fading that into that darkness above it. Okay, you can do a little bit of, you know, structuring out on the teeth, put a little bit of that definition around there, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom here. I'm just going to kind of make a little bit more darkness down there, as if it's like kind of showing where the back of the mouth is, or the throat. So I'm going to make it a little bit darker underneath there, because that's just going to be the inner depths of the mouth. Okay. Probably should have made the teeth a little bit bigger. And if I'm looking at the teeth now, I'm thinking they need to be a little bit bigger for the size that I made the lips. So I'm just going to kind of go back here and make these a little bit bigger. You know, I think I kind of messed that up, but you know, it happens when you're just kind of freehanding it. So I think that looks a little bit better. Okay, so I'm a hell of a bit happier with that. Another thing that's a really neat trick to do is put some real dark contrast. You guys got to get some contrast in your pictures. Put some darks in the corners of the mouth right here. Okay, start those darks in the corners of the mouth, and then fade it in with the blending stick. Okay, fade it over top of the teeth a little bit too. Okay, fade that over top of the teeth. Now my mouth's really starting to look more realistic. It's popping because I got contrast. Okay, and contrast is key here. Okay, I'm also going to put a little bit of contrast underneath here. If you look at one of my good examples, this is probably like the best mouth I've ever drawn here. Okay, you want a little bit of darkness here, and it just fades in. A little bit of darkness there, well, a lot of darkness right there, and it fades in. Okay, other place I like to put a little bit of shadow is right underneath that bottom lip. Really makes it look like the lip's popping off the page because I put some shadow underneath it. And if you look at, you know, a lot of lips, okay, there is a tiny little bit of shade underneath that bottom lip right there, if you pay attention closely. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to put a little bit of shading underneath there with my pencil. Just a little bit, not a lot, and I'm going to fade out with the blending stick. Okay, so we're going to put a little bit underneath there, and I'm kind of liking the way this is looking a little bit more now, fading it out. And you can see I'm really working that blending stick. I'm not just doing it for 2 seconds and saying I'm done. I'm really working it, kind of trying to blend it out, and constantly reassessing and trying to make it better. Okay, so I like that. Finishing touches, I'm gonna put a little bit of light line work in the lips. Okay, that little bit of light line work is gonna be the texture of the lips. I'm making these lines kind of a little bit curved and a little bit rounded, so it shows the volume of the lips. And you can even put a little highlight across the lip with like a little cap eraser or something too. Okay, so that's my finishing touches. I'm just gonna kind of put those in there real quick. Okay, I want them to be so light that you barely even see them. If you're doing it so dark and you're making a dark outline there and you can see them like that, it's not gonna look good. Okay, so again, stay away from those dark outlines. Try not to make them too dark. Try and make them as soft and subtle and barely noticeable as possible, so that it's just slightly there. And there we go. So I'm putting those lines in the bottom there. Okay, and again, I can always come back with a little bit of a highlight. Put a little bit of a highlight there, where maybe like the light's reflecting off the bottom lip. Put a little bit of these lines back in there over top of that. Works a little bit better with the cap eraser, but and then just kind of making a little more structure around the lips here. Doing some finishing touches. Okay, putting some lines up here as well. Curving them a little bit. And you can see that this demonstration here took about 10 minutes just to do the lips. Okay, if you spend 10 minutes to do the lips, I guarantee they're going to be pretty good. If you try and do the lips in, a minute or 2 minutes, probably not going to be as good. So take your time as you do everything and really constantly try and seek ways to improve it. So there's the lips, okay, and that's the mouth. Thank you guys.